There are moments in markets when a single number tells a much bigger story. Right now, that number is $84. Silver holding the $84 level while three major exchanges are draining simultaneously is not just a price update. It is a signal, and when one of the largest physical buyers in the world, India, suddenly changes the rules of the game, the entire landscape begins to shift. The surface looks calm, but underneath, powerful forces are moving. The question is not simply what silver is doing today. The question is what this moment might represent in the larger story of global markets. Silver holding 84 while supply drains from multiple exchanges at the same time creates a rare situation. Markets are usually driven by one dominant force at a time, either demand rising or supply tightening. When both forces appear together, the dynamic becomes more complex. Add a policy change from a country that has historically been one of the biggest participants in the physical metals market, and suddenly the conversation expands far beyond a single chart. This is where understanding context becomes everything, because the average observer looks at a price chart and sees movement. Experienced observers look at the same chart and ask a different question. They ask why. Silver is not just another commodity. It sits in a unique position between industry and monetary history. It powers electronics, solar technology, and countless industrial applications, while also carrying centuries of reputation as a store of value. That dual identity means its market behavior can reveal something deeper about the global economy. When a metal like silver holds a key level while physical inventories are being pulled from exchanges, it tells us that demand and availability may be shifting in ways that are not always visible on a daily price chart. Think of a reservoir. Imagine a large lake that feeds several cities. If water levels stay stable while multiple pipelines are draining simultaneously, it means something interesting is happening. Either new water is flowing in faster than expected, or demand is accelerating in ways that will eventually be felt. Markets work in similar ways. Exchanges represent a visible pool of supply. When that pool begins to shrink across multiple locations at once, analysts start paying attention, not because it guarantees anything, but because it suggests that underlying flows are changing. Now introduce the next layer of the story, India. India has one of the most culturally and economically significant relationships with precious metals in the world. For generations, gold and silver have played a role in weddings, savings traditions, and long-term wealth preservation. When policy changes occur in a market with that kind of historical demand, the ripple effects can travel far beyond its borders. A rule change in India might influence how metals move through the global supply chain. It might affect import behavior, trading structures, or how local markets interact with international exchanges. And when a country with millions of active buyers adjusts the framework, global traders take notice. Because markets are not just charts and numbers, they are ecosystems. They are shaped by governments, industries, cultural traditions, technological demand, and human psychology all interacting at once. This is why moments like the one implied by this title matter, not because they predict the future with certainty, but because they remind us that financial systems are constantly evolving. The first lesson here is about understanding structure rather than chasing headlines. Many people approach markets by reacting to price movement alone. When prices rise, excitement grows. When prices fall, fear appears. But seasoned observers often look beyond the surface and examine how supply chains, exchange inventories, and policy decisions interact. In the case of silver, exchange inventories act like a barometer of physical availability within the formal trading system. If multiple exchanges show consistent outflows, analysts begin asking whether those movements represent industrial consumption, strategic storage, or shifts in how metals are being distributed globally. None of these interpretations guarantee any specific outcome, but they provide context. And context is one of the most valuable tools anyone can develop when studying markets. Because markets are not static machines. They are living systems shaped by incentives, expectations, and global developments. This leads to the second important insight, the difference between price and value perception. Price is what appears on the screen. Value is how participants interpret what that price represents. There are times when a market appears quiet on the surface, while deeper forces are building underneath. Silver holding a level like 84, while multiple exchanges see inventory drawdowns, can be viewed as one of those moments where observers start asking whether the visible price fully reflects the underlying activity. But the key here is patience. Markets often move in phases. First comes accumulation or redistribution. Then comes recognition. Only later does broader participation arrive. History shows that many of the biggest financial moves in commodities begin long before the average headline recognizes what is happening. That does not mean every structural change leads to dramatic price shifts. Sometimes markets absorb new conditions gradually. Sometimes they adapt through increased production or changing demand patterns. But the individuals who study these patterns develop a mindset that looks beyond daily noise. They learn to ask deeper questions. Why are inventories moving? Why are certain regions adjusting policies? Why are industrial users increasing or decreasing their consumption? Those questions lead to understanding rather than speculation. The third insight involves psychology. Financial markets are environments where emotion often moves faster than information. A single headline can trigger excitement or panic within minutes, even when the underlying situation is far more complex. Silver has experienced this many times throughout history. Periods of rapid enthusiasm have often been followed by long stretches of quiet consolidation, and during those quieter periods, the most valuable thing an observer can do is continue learning, because markets reward understanding more than reaction. When viewers encounter titles discussing exchange inventories draining or countries changing rules, the most productive response is curiosity. Curiosity leads to research. Research leads to perspective. Perspective leads to better decision-making over time. And that principle applies not only to metals markets, but to any financial system. The fourth lesson is about global interconnectedness. The modern economy operates through networks that span continents. A policy adjustment in one country can influence trade flows in another. Industrial demand from one sector can tighten supply chains somewhere else. Silver sits directly in the middle of several of these networks. It supports technology manufacturing, renewable energy development, medical equipment, and countless electronic devices. At the same time, it maintains a presence in investment markets and cultural traditions. Because of that dual role, silver sometimes acts like a mirror reflecting multiple layers of the global economy simultaneously. Industrial demand reflects technological progress. Monetary demand reflects investor sentiment. Exchange inventories reflect logistical flows. Policy changes reflect government priorities. When all of these forces begin interacting at the same time, the market becomes a fascinating case study in economic complexity. And this is where a powerful mindset shift can occur for anyone watching these developments. Instead of viewing markets purely as places to speculate, they can be viewed as educational systems. Every movement becomes an opportunity to learn something about how the world works. Why do supply chains tighten? How do policy changes influence trade behavior? Why do certain assets attract attention during periods of uncertainty? These questions transform market observation into a form of financial literacy, and financial literacy is one of the most valuable long-term skills anyone can develop, because the goal is not to predict every price movement. That is nearly impossible. The goal is to understand patterns, incentives, and systems. When you develop that level of awareness, headlines become starting points for investigation rather than triggers for emotional reactions. And that mindset creates a powerful advantage over time. It turns volatility into information. It turns uncertainty into education. It turns complex global developments into opportunities for learning. So when you hear that silver is holding a key level, while 3 exchanges experience simultaneous inventory declines, and a major buyer like India changes the rules, the most valuable response is not excitement or fear. It is attention. Attention to detail, attention to context, attention to the broader forces shaping the global economy. Because the biggest lessons in markets rarely come from a single day's movement. They come from understanding the story that unfolds over months and years. Silver's story has been evolving for centuries. It has moved from ancient coinage to industrial backbone, from monetary history to technological necessity. And moments like this remind us that the story continues to evolve. The world is changing. Energy systems are changing. Technology is advancing. Supply chains are adapting. And markets are constantly reflecting those transformations in ways that sometimes take time to fully understand. So if you take anything from this discussion, let it be this. Develop the habit of looking deeper. Study the structures behind the headlines. Observe the patterns that connect global decisions to market behavior, because knowledge compounds just like wealth. The more you understand how systems interact, the more confident you become navigating an increasingly complex financial world. And that journey of learning is far more valuable than any single prediction about where a market might go next. If you found this perspective valuable, take a moment to support the channel. Like the video so more people can discover this conversation, share your thoughts in the comments about what you think changing global silver dynamics might mean, and subscribe for more calm, clear breakdowns of the forces shaping markets and the global economy. Because the goal here is simple, not hype, not panic, just understanding. And sometimes, understanding the story behind a single number, like silver holding 84 while the world quietly shifts around it, can teach us more about markets than any headline ever could.